31, we call this study session of the governing board of the school district 1 to order. Turn it over to Luciano.
Let me just, as a brief intro.
Okay, intro.
Let me swallow. Get my manners back. Over the last, we're in year 8 now. We've had quite a journey when it comes to salaries and benefits. We were rock bottom in the county in 2016. We were in a situation where I believe 6 of 7 years we had been frozen. During that time, they had added money to the base to attract new teachers, which meant that we were in a situation where people with a certain number of years of experience in our school district would make less than a new teacher to the district who had the same years of experience. So if somebody taught, say, 8 years somewhere else, they came in and were making more than someone who had taught 8 years in our school district. So it took us a couple of years to correct that. And we were in a very similar situation when it came to classified. So it took about 4 years for us to rectify all that. And then we did a reclassification a few years back for our admin. We were in a situation with admin where our associate superintendents were making about what a high school assistant principal was making. Hard to attract good people when, so we were able to do that.
I was just gonna say also we had a situation where your classified instructional coaches who were on a teacher placement schedule and eligible for 301 funds were very close to that AP starting salary.
Not as much as an AP.
There wasn't much incentive for them to move into those roles financially.
Right. So, and in 2016-17, we were at about a little over 70% of the state average for salaries, and now we're up over 90%. I believe the last one had us at 93. We're to be interested to see where we're going to be now, but we've really made a priority to make sure that we're putting as much money as we can into our people, and I think it's really paying some dividends. The guys will talk a little bit about our bus drivers. You may remember at the beginning of the year we were fully staffed, which never happens. I think we're really starting to see the benefit of our approach to try to take as much as we can every year and invest it in people, and kind of look under every rock and see what we can turn over and turn that into salaries and benefits for folks. And I didn't even mention that we were in YABC. We went self-funded we went what's the term? Fully insured with the goal of going self-funded. And of course, we're self-funded this year with our insurance, so we feel like we're well positioned to undergird that self-funded insurance and offer our employees better insurance for less cost to the employee. So in the last few years with the ESSER, we've reported many times that we have recoded allowable expenses. So we've recouped money that we can carry forward. So it looks like we have a big carry forward, which we do. But the idea behind that, the strategy behind that was so that we could, when the ESSER money runs off, instead of falling off a cliff, we could kind of sail into a soft landing and continue to hopefully give our employees a little bit, enough to get ahead. Okay? We want to stay ahead of inflation, because for so many years we were so far behind inflation. So that's kind of where we've been over the last 8 years, and I feel that's one of the things I'm probably most proud of since becoming the superintendent, is the work of our team and the support we've been able to get from our employees. We put together the employee compensation group, and for great feedback too. We did that in 2018, and we just, I think, got a real good system going. So I'll turn it over to the guys, and
Thank you, Mr. Sheldo.
Tell you where we're at.
So I will pass this out just in case the power goes out. We can use our cell phone flashlights to look at everything. We've got backup candles.
Oh, there you go. Thank you.
So here's our agenda. We're going to start off with the compensation committee. We're going to dive into our district's financial position, what it looks like going into next year. We're going to talk about insurance, and we'll end with our salary recommendations and our timeline. So jumping into compensation committee, just like Mr. Sheldon said, we've been working with this fantastic committee since 2018. So again, a reminder, this committee has employee representatives from different employee groups, which I'll show you in a little bit. And really their mission is to provide us feedback and perspective on our compensation recommendations, on our benefits. They've been with us through some of the challenges when it comes to compensation, the challenges with insurance, that huge decision last year about making the change from fully insured to self-insured. They've been through the entire journey with us. And most of those members, I would say, have been with us since 2018, right when we started. So we have a lot of history still in that compensation committee. So there's a recent photo that we took at our last meeting. Dennis said next year I have to do a selfie so I can be in the photo. So we'll see.
We're going to give him a selfie stick.
So here is just a look at the compensation committee members. And you can see the different employee groups. So you have middle school teachers represented, 2 there, 1 from the east, 1 in town. You have elementary teachers, also 2 from in town, 1 out east. You have the other employee group that's represented. So these are your exempt employees. You have someone from transportation, child nutrition, maintenance, secretary group, and then the other support staff. So that person in particular is a library assistant. And then we have our administrator representative, Ashley Fox. So 3 of those individuals are new this year, but everyone else has history with the compensation committee. So it's been a great experience, especially during those challenging times, to have feedback and some brainstorming sessions to get solutions moving forward. All right, we're going to move on to our district's financial position.
All right, so we don't anticipate a huge influx of new money just because we're predicting a decline in enrollment. And so that would be the reason why. If we don't see a decline in enrollment or it's smaller than 1.5%, that's just a bonus for us. But we wanted to move forward, presuming that this year repeats itself. We don't know, last year's 8th grade class to this year's kindergarten class, completely different sizes. We don't know if next year's kindergarten class is going to be the same, higher, lower, right? And so we wanted to go in assuming we're going to see a decline so that we don't get a surprise if that does happen. And if we stay flat, then that's fantastic. We get even more money. So we'll get roughly a 2% inflation adjustment, which is what is the cap. And since inflation was 3.4, 3.2, somewhere in there, we would qualify for the 2%. But again, 1.5% of declining enrollment would almost kind of net that gain out. And so that's what we're basing this on for the sake of being conservative.
Okay.
So then to the next slide, you'll see what we anticipate for district reserve. So this has a couple of pieces to it. In the recent budget package that you got at the board meeting, you would see a number that's about 16 million. We put 17 here for a couple of reasons. One is we have 2.3 set aside every year in M&O to account for those positions in ESSER that we would have to assume at some point if we wanted to, right? And so we'll carry some of that money forward. And then we always get money back from encumbrances that aren't fully utilized. So whatever we encumber, we don't always spend every penny of that, so we recapture some of that money. So 17 million is a safe conservative estimate. We feel like where we'll end this year with carry forward going into next year. So it'll probably be a little bit higher than that, but this is a conservative number for us to be safe in the decisions that we make. Again, we try to underestimate revenue and overestimate expenses. So there's just a buffer built into every formula or every decision that we make.
When we presented this to the compensation committee, they were very thankful, and I think they even give a round of applause to the finance department for putting us in this position where we do have reserves to look at as opposed to making drastic cuts or things of that nature. So they were very appreciative of the finance department and Mr. Ponder's leadership there. So.
Good question.
Yeah. Yep.
This 17 million carryover, is it sitting in a savings account or encumbered? Are you allowed to invest it to make? Can't make any of
And not make any interest on it.
Yeah, this is just budget capacity. It's not actual money. In the same way that we think of it.
Monopoly money.
Yeah.
T-bills.
No, moving on.
Yeah, that's the fun thing with Arizona is it's all based on budget capacity and not actual money.
Dollars.
Like There's a little bit of to look at the tax money we collect, but by and large, that doesn't matter. What matters is how many kids we have and what budget capacity that creates. So we have the ability to carry that forward and the ability to spend it, but we don't have $17 million just hanging out somewhere.
Something else.
Yeah, yeah. Somebody takes care of that for us.
Good question.
Yeah.
We're looking for loans.
Yeah.
It's off the interest.
That's not good.
Okay, we're moving on to insurance. So I know last year we had about maybe 45 slides explaining the transition between fully insured to self-insured. This year, we only have one slide, okay? So that's nice.
So don't wait too long to get your dessert.
So the big question always when we discuss this in the compensation committee is what's our renewal percentage, right? What should we plan for the budget for insurance renewal? And typically it starts in double digits. One year we started at 32%, negotiated down to 18%. One year we started at 24. So, I mean, it varies, it's been very variable. So for this year, drum roll, our insurance renewal with our self-funded model, 9%.
Nice.
I can't remember the last time we had the initial number be a single digit
Mhm.
in the last 12 years that I've been here. So it was phenomenal to see that. And this is us budgeting conservatively
Yep, this
for
is a
9%.
conservative number. Yep.
It might come in a little less than that. We're waiting for some final claims to come in to
Yep.
see what those underwriters are going to say. But we're very happy. This is the first positive step when you think about the transition from fully insured to self-insured. And then we had some conversation about maybe using some of those reserves to prepay our insurance.
We thought about that as an option to prepay our next year's premiums with this year's carry forward. So we build in that kind of savings into next year. So if we do hit a rocky point, we could, all right, well, we just won't pay the premiums. We'll eat into what we prepaid. We won't pay premiums next year, and we'll be able to, we have a year to make decisions rather than having to make them, right away, which gives us a little bit of a buffer. The other thing about this being conservative is we have a few choices. We could stay with 9% and just kind of buy a buffer over the year. Or if it comes in at 8%, we could go, well, let's drop it down to 8% and we save a little bit of money. So it gives us a little bit of an opportunity to figure out what we want to do in those terms. So, but we were very, very happy to see 9% where we start. So it's a good step for us.
And we're taking the opportunity to really try to educate employees on how to be better consumers of insurance. We're trying to promote our programs like our Mexico network through IMS. We're trying to promote 98.6, our Teladoc app too. So we've been trying to do that through our wellness efforts. We're trying to do this with some online challenges for those employees that can't make those wellness events. So we've been seeing some incremental growth in that. It's going to be a strategy,
path,
a long-term
but, yeah.
strategy, but we're taking some steps to make some gains in that. And so we'll be
You might
very
have
pleased
mentioned
with
it in one of the meetings previously, but what is your growth in participation?
I don't think it's changed a
Not yet.
ton because none of our benefits or offerings have changed a lot. What we're hoping to see is over time, as the family plan cost goes down and some of those things go down, we might be able to see a little bit more participation in that from our folks when it becomes affordable. But we really haven't seen a significant change in participation last year to this year because on their end, not a whole lot changed. But we're hoping to impact that with this type of news and providing a more rich benefit.
I would say also last year, the board approved for us to reclassify our special ed paraprofessionals from 5.5 hours to 6.5. So that entire group was able to be on board this year and offer insurance benefits. So that would be an addition this
So
year.
that's a pretty good sized group that insured now that wasn't prior.
And that's a recruiting and retention point as well.
Yes. Yes, and we have one more piece that we're going to recommend later on as far as that group of employees, the 6.5-hour employees are kind of in the middle. They're not 8-hour employees, they're not 5.5-hour employees. So how do we make it more attractive to keep those employees? Because if you see our job postings that go out, mainly we see paraprofessionals that we're still losing. So we'll talk about that a little bit there. But with insurance, we're very pleased. Okay, salary increase recommendations. So we're going to start with our exempt employees. So these are all your non-hourly employees. We are looking at the cost of living about 3.2, 3.4%, and so we're going just a little higher than that to be competitive. So we're recommending a 4% increase, and you can see on your handout the list of employees that includes. So teachers, non-teachers that are certified, administrators, and other exempt employees such as registered nurses and all your related services from ESS. So you can see the cost associated with that increase. Now, in addition to teachers getting the 4%, as you can see in the next slide, we are recommending that we increase the classroom site fund, or I still like to call it 301 fund.
Oh, it's 301 for 20 years.
There you
Yeah.
go. There you go. It's ingrained in my mind that way. By $1,500. So teachers would have the 4% to the base salary, and then we would increase the 301 funds by $1,500. And so you can see the side-by-side comparison. This year's 301s, there's two what we call buckets of money for teachers. We have the base, and that is paid out throughout the year in conjunction with their base salary. Then our performance funds are paid out in June if they meet the criteria that's spelled out by the committee. So Mr. Ponder and I were talking about, we want to see that increase go directly to the base of 301 so the teachers can have that every 2 weeks. They don't have to wait until June to see that increase happen. So it's paid in accordance with their base contract. So you can see the difference between $9,200 on top of the base salary. Moving into next year, if that's approved by the governing board, it'd be $10,700 on top of their base salary for teachers. This was, I would say that the teachers on the compensation committee, it didn't seem like they were anticipating this high
No,
of
they
an
weren't.
increase. So they were pleasantly surprised by this recommendation, especially with the increase to 301 funds. We've been very conservative
Yeah.
in how incrementally we increase that fund for teachers
Yeah.
in order to be competitive. But I will say that the huge jump that we had last year in our teacher pay, we saw dividends with that. We saw the first time that we were able to hire teachers from the high school district and move to the elementary school district. We saw experienced teachers coming with more than 4 years of experience, and now that's rare to see that, right? So we saw that from other charter schools and other schools around our county. So we want to keep the momentum going, and we still I'm getting emails from principals right now saying that they're getting interest from other teachers that are interested from outside of our district that are experienced and that are properly certified. So that's a great sign of hopefully things to come with our recruitment season.
May I ask a question, Luciano?
Of course,
So the base pay that used to be coming at the end, I guess our last paycheck?
for the performance pay.
Yeah, before,
Yes.
or was the performance pay?
So the performance pay is paid out in June,
Okay,
and then the base 301 pay is paid out in conjunction with their contract every
So
2
every 2
weeks.
and that
Yes.
was this current year?
Both, yeah.
Oh,
So that's just our
okay.
structure. Yeah, so the base pay is always paid out in conjunction with the contract.
Okay,
The performance is paid out in June if they meet the criteria spelled out by the committee.
okay.
And the wisdom in having a significant piece be pulled out on the performance is if tax revenue is directly tied to sales tax revenue. So if sales tax revenue goes down, you don't want to be in a position where you're reducing somebody's every 2 week take home.
Mhm.
Right, right.
We would have that, we would have to say at the end, well, this year it's only going to be 3,000 instead of 3,200. But we keep a little bit of a reserve so we can be pretty consistent. I know certain districts, like the high school district, pretty much pays it all out at the end. So whatever it is, that's what it is. Well, some years it's a big chunk, and I remember a couple of years where it was not very much, especially after the recession. Sales tax revenues went way down.
And this goes to certified teachers,
Yes,
not the exempt employees,
no,
and not emergency certified teachers.
it does go to emergency
Does-
certified
okay.
teachers,
If
yes.
they're certified through the state,
Okay,
Which means they have a degree and they're
Okay.
working towards certification, right? So
perfect.
they're on contract.
Certified is exempt, right?
That is one of the
Yes.
exempt, yeah,
One of the
I meant the
categories,
other.
Oh, okay.
It wouldn't go to long-term subs.
Right,
It would have to
okay.
be someone with a degree that has a certification.
Mhm.
Okay,
So the next one, we've talked for a few years now about ESSER holding about 32 positions in it and that price tag being about $2.3 million. So what we're recommending is maintaining 30 of those teaching positions due to an enhancement in the student to teacher ratio. So on the left-hand side, you'll see our current staffing ratio where Kinder is staffed 25-1. These are our target zones. And then first through fifth is 30-1. And then the middle school 27-1. So what we're recommending next year is Kinder and first being 25-1. So bringing first grade down where Kinder is. Second and third coming down from 30 to 28-1. And then fourth and fifth staying at 30-1 and middle school staying the same. We want to do this because obviously the focus on that Kinder through third, that move on when reading type of thing, move on when ready. We want to focus on those younger grades. The more success they have there, the better matriculation you have through the whole system for our middle schools and then beyond. And those kids can experience a lot better success. So we really wanted to target those younger grades and change those classroom sizes so that those teachers can be even more effective than they have been in helping those kids, reach their goals, reach their milestones. And so that's why we wanted to move forward with this recommendation. With the new staffing formula, 20 of those 30 positions would go to the elementary, and then 10 have been allotted for middle school. So there's a pretty significant investment in the elementary piece with this new staffing ratio.
Would that mean 30 more classrooms?
So with declining enrollment, we're not really going to have to add a ton more classrooms. There's a little bit of looking at what we have. We don't have any new classrooms that would be going in.
No.
It's just providing support for some of the areas. There was, with the new formula, it was keeping 10 teachers because the formula changed, but none of it was putting a new teacher in a brand new classroom.
Because our current class sizes are below those ratios. So we don't have to add additional classrooms for those schools since they're already below those ratios. So the staffing formula plugged it in where you just have certain positions that will continue without having to add additional ones.
Yeah.
We were really expecting an increase in enrollment this year based on all of the building out east and all of those kinds of things. So we did staff up a couple of our schools in the east. And so it's really to make sure that there would be enough room for those students to come in when that didn't happen. That's one of the reasons that it was that it wasn't adding 30 new classrooms or anything like that. We're actually probably scaling back a bit.
Yeah.
Not
Basically, we're
much.
keeping teachers that we were financing through ESSER.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, because
Rolling them
I was
into the-
confused, and maybe you explained it, and I just can't understand it, but if you go from 30 to 1 to 28 to 1,
Mhm.
that to me in my little brain is another classroom. But
Yeah.
if you're not currently at 30 to 1.
That's it.
Right.
That's it.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
We're currently under that now, but we wanted to really focus on getting to 25 to 1 and first as well. And then just, we're there. So let's just commit to staying there.
Yeah.
Is kind of what we're
Let's lock it
doing
in.
now.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. We've shown
So
that
now
we
that's the
can
formula.
manage at this level. We can finance it at this level. So let's just make this the level going forward. So it just kind of lowers the cap, but it doesn't add new classrooms because we didn't have a bunch of classrooms with 35 kids in them. They were below that already.
There are a couple considerations. One is we've had to have some conversations with some principals because it's a formula, right? And you look at the number of students in each grade and you assign teachers based on the formula. And that's across the grade span, right? So there may be a high point where second grade at a given school is at 29, but maybe first grade is at 22.
Yeah.
So the averages average out. But people being people and wanting to see what they, how much they can leverage, they're like, well, but I should have another teacher there because I'm over the 28. It's like, no, it's not an automatic new teacher as soon as you get over 28 in a given, it's a formula and it's a target. So on average between first and fifth, you're well within the.
Oh, interesting. Average, okay.
Yeah. And then the other is we're going to run into a situation where if Desert Mesa grows, if Sunrise or Otondo grows, not going to be a place to put those kids. So even though the formula calls for that ratio, if there's no place to put them, then we have to take kids who live in our attendance area.
Can't go out and build another classroom.
What we usually do in that situation though is we'll provide para support for those
Yes.
classes.
Yeah.
Or
An
we
extra
can,
adult.
or we can look at another teacher position, but maybe they're pulling out small groups outside of that classroom and take them to different areas and put both of those kind of support
Right.
systems in place.
Is there really a big impact between adding a para and a teacher to a classroom?
It helps with classroom management. It
Yeah.
helps with small group
I mean, the
interventions.
difference.
Oh,
The difference between putting a para in there versus a certified teacher, Does
Yeah.
the
Oh,
primary
yeah.
teacher, is there
Oh,
a
yeah,
difference?
that's,
Oh,
certified
yes.
teacher is gonna make a big difference.
Just in sheer numbers too, to be able
Yeah.
to alleviate.
Yeah.
that
And,
higher
you know,
process.
paraprofessional is gonna work in accordance with the certified teachers' training and instruction. You know, they don't have the background or expertise to be planning lessons, following kids learning, using the data. They can learn a little bit of that, but they don't have near the knowledge base that a certified teacher is gonna have.
I wasn't sure if just having an additional adult in the room.
That helps,
would-
because they
that's
can
just
run
the
small
starting
groups.
point. That's just the starting point.
Better than nothing.
Yeah,
but
Paras
not
are
as-
great, but a certified teacher is better.
Sometimes we've also considered having a long-term sub assist, so they're still certified to be in there and to work under the guidance of the teacher of record as well. So some other,
The only reason I'm asking lots of questions about this, because classroom sizes have always, as far as I've ever known schools, has always been one of those issues.
Mhm.
Yep.
Right, is if you have smaller classroom sizes, teachers would be happier.
Yep.
In
Right.
theory,
Yep.
kids would learn more.
Right.
But kids are gonna learn what kids are gonna learn, I think. But, is there a long-term objective to getting classrooms down to anything lower than this, or is this just something that?
I think this is a first step in that direction.
Mhm.
And we're also going to evaluate what does student enrollment look like on day 3 of next year too, right?
Mhm.
But absolutely, I think it's a first step in that long-term
It's like
strategy.
nailing Jello to a tree, right? Because as soon as you staff up for something.
Right.
That school may not get the numbers.
Right.
Like you
Right.
said, second grade may outnumber by 20%.
Right.
First
Right.
grade, and then what do you do?
Right.
Mhm.
It's not an easy, people are not reproducing at it.
Yeah.
Yes.
No.
Yeah.
Oh,
Great questions.
yeah,
Free will.
it's interesting too, the research, the research on class size, the way it's reported always is relative to teacher style. So like a teacher, according to the research, doesn't teach any differently with 30 kids in their classroom than they do with 25. But that's not what we should be looking at. We should be looking at how much feedback does an individual kid get in a class of 25 as opposed to 32 or 33?
Mhm.
How much more individualized, how much more small group attention can each kid get from the teacher? And how much more manageable can we make the teacher's job?
Yeah.
Right.
You know, if
But
you're
another-
grading 25 papers every day instead
Yeah.
of 30.
Yeah, when you have 8 to 10 less things to grade, you can put a little bit more time into each one of those, or
And
you
8 to
don't
10
have to be
fewer
up till 9 o'clock
personalities
doing it.
to,
Yeah, we had talked about that, about, teachers assigning a 10-page essay for their classroom.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Are you talking to me?
Then you go home
Due
and read,
on the Friday before spring break?
Oh, no.
well, go home and read 300 pages worth of student
What did I do
writing.
to myself?
And when you go back, you're not sure how half those words are spelled.
That's funny.
You've seen them misspelled so many different ways. You're not sure what they're spelling it.
Class size matters.
Yeah.
Yes.
You're right.
It does.
Yes.
I know this year, side note, Lauren had 43 students in beginning band.
Oh, wow.
And she was like, I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
Because how can you teach each kid, beginning band, so they don't know
Yes.
nothing.
Yes.
How to hold the instrument, how to play, anyway.
Yeah.
So she was running crazy, I know.
Great problem to have, though.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's a
Great
special
problem to have. That
case,
means you're-
it's a special-
Yeah.
That means you're building a strong program.
Yep.
Yep.
Just gotta get the resources.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Okay. We're going to move on now to our hourly employees. So of course, we have 2 groups of hourly employees. We have those above the minimum wage and those below the minimum wage. So we're going to talk about those above the minimum wage. We're recommending a 75-cent increase to that employee group. Minimum wage did go up 50 cents, so we wanted to go 25 cents above that, just to kind of stay ahead. And so you can see that we wouldn't apply the 75 cents to the placement schedule. We would only apply the 50 cents to stay competitive and to give those employees that have been here longer additional increase to create that separation to employee groups. All right. And then now we have the employees at minimum wage. Of course, this is all dependent on what the state determines, I believe in August, September. We're going to project conservatively that it will hit the $15 mark in January of 25. So we're going to budget for that. It could come in a little bit less than that, but we want to be prepared for that. So that's why we want to stay ahead with our other ranges beyond minimum wage to make sure that we're competitive there as well. All right, we're going to move on forward to bus drivers. We saw a lot of success, a tremendous amount of success with the reclassification last year, the $2 raise for bus drivers. Ask me how many bus drivers we lost throughout the summer into October. The answer is 0.
Oh, that's great.
I've been here 12 years. I've never seen that happen before, right? In the summer, we lose a lot of bus drivers. So that, in addition to some new leadership that we have, and the transportation department is really starting to enhance the culture that we're seeing in the transportation department. This was a huge piece. Bus drivers felt valued. They felt appreciated for the complex job that they have as a bus driver. So we want to recommend that they do receive a higher increase. So on top of the 75 cents, we want to add in 50 cents to make it a complete $1.25 to stay competitive, to stay ahead. And there's also a factor with the high school as well.
Yeah, since we're in the consortium with the high school district, they have a larger demand for bus drivers than us for athletic trips, activities, those types of things. And so what they've had to do in the previous few years was pay about $5,000 a day for a charter bus to take a sports team out of town for a trip or to take an activity out of town. And so with ESSER, they were able to manage that, but now that ESSER is going away in September, they don't have that flexibility next year. And so we wanted to invest in this one more time for that problem to essentially be gone. It affects us too, because sometimes we have to do double runs and our kids get to school late or they get picked up late. And that's not an ideal scenario either. So it affects the kids, but it's also a significant financial impact for the high school district. And this year, there have been several months where they didn't have to get a charter bus at all. So it has made a significant difference for them, which they're very happy about. And so we're hoping that this additional increase of $1.25 will pretty much eliminate that issue, which is great. Because right now, if all the people that are with what we have hired and what's going through training, if all those matriculate and stay, we're at 124. And the original number was 125, but now with the new high school in Somerton and as it grows, we're going to have to add a few more routes. So Ron's targeting about 130 would be fully staffed. So we're really close, and we started last year at 93.
Wow.
So they've done an excellent job of recruiting, hiring.
And
Was
maintaining
it 40
their staff.
some, 50 some applications every time we put it out there that we're hiring bus drivers.
Yeah.
So we've been able to gain a lot of ground in that and want to do one more kind of accelerated rate increase for that group so that this doesn't return to being the issue that it had been in the past.
Diane Cordray, their CFO, reported at the last YEC meeting that in the 22-23 school year, they spent over $1 million on athletic travel, on athletic and activity travel. This year so far, they were under 60,000, I think.
Wow, I got there late, so I didn't hear that number. That's remarkable.
That's great.
Wow. So we should get a higher percentage from them?
I
Is
mean,
that
as
what
far
you're-
as under 60,000 that they've had
They fund a
to
lot
charter.
more now.
Yeah,
Do we do any out-of-town trips with our bus drivers?
some. We
Some
do have
field
some field
trips.
trips
Some
and
field
stuff, yeah.
They paid the same rate when they do out of town?
There's a different.
And they get a rate for
Scale.
their idle time as well. So they do get paid. If they drive and sit and wait, they still get paid for that as well.
Standby.
So there's a little bit,
Yeah.
there's a little different rate for that. But the hourly rate while they're driving would be the same.
Unless they went overtime too.
Yeah.
And then, of course, we share costs with the high
I'm
school.
just curious, how many hours does a bus driver generally get paid for on a daily basis?
Between 7 and 8, sometimes 6.5 and 8. It just varies on other athletic trips, after school, before school, but it varies between that range. So we have 2 positions that are very hard to fill. The first one's tied into transportation. We'll start there first. And so the mechanic positions, I called Ron today just to say, okay, is my data the same way as your data? I said, I have history here that shows mechanic positions have been unfilled for almost 4 years. That's about 6 positions here. That's what we have is, 6 positions that are unfilled for the last 4 years. And so it's really hard because you have to have someone who has the experience, someone who has certifications to work as a mechanic. And when we don't have the appropriate staffing, we have to outsource that. And the cost for that is
So far from August to December of this year was $220,000 to pay an outside company, RWC, to come in and provide those mechanic services that we don't have time to keep up on. That's about 4 full-time mechanics hired by us in just
In half a
5
year.
months' time.
Yeah.
So that's what's kind of driving this recommendation is to hire our own folks so that we can save on that expense.
So the
Do we have the
same.
equipment to do
Oh,
this?
yeah.
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 We just don't have enough people
Applying.
that want to come and do the work for us because the pay is,
$18.50 an
Yeah.
hour, yeah.
they can go usually get low to mid 20s somewhere else. And if they go to RWC, I don't even know what that is, but I imagine that would be higher, but the hours are different.
We just are not seeing any applications come through. The
Mhm.
ones that are coming through have zero experience, so we're not allowed to hire them, right, and work on our buses. And then it creates a strain for our bus drivers because there's some frustration that their bus isn't fixed in a timely manner. Yeah, timely manner. So we started researching what the county average was for mechanics, and it did range between $21 and $23. So we wanted to start at the 21 range and just kind of see what that reclassification does. Do we see the same effect that we saw with bus drivers? And just take that first step. So that would be a $2.50 increase for our current mechanics and lead mechanics. But we're hoping to make some impact with especially those unfilled positions that we've had for at least 4 years.
Right now, the contracting company is sending mechanics to our shop.
Yep.
And they're working in our shop
Using our equipment.
and charging us.
Right, yeah,
their rate.
so they're wearing out our equipment.
Yes.
Yeah.
and we're
Yeah.
paying them to
So
do it.
time is of the essence, it sounds like, in this kind of a situation, absolutely.
Yeah.
And we
You
just saw
said
so
your
much
market research comes back between 21 and
21 and 23. It's actually higher if you look at the state of Arizona. It's about 26. But we wanted to start a little more conservative than that.
I assume there'll be a follow-up based on job postings if this goes through to
Right.
see what your response is.
Right.
Yeah, we'll check it like we did the bus drivers and see what kind of traction we gain and what kind of interest we get in those areas, and then we can make another adjustment next year if we need to.
I think Mr. Sheepers, if he was still here, he would say he would like to go higher than that,
Yeah,
but we
he
want to
would.
be conservative
Mhm.
in how much of a jump we want to do, then evaluate that first, and then possibly next year come up with a different recommendation if we don't think it's going to make a dent.
Do we need a full year to determine how it's gonna turn? I mean, since it's costing so much money potentially, I wonder if it would be worth it looking at it
We've had
Mid-year.
mid-year changes
and seeing if
before.
we need to make an adjustment, if we all agree, of course.
Right.
You know, to save
Good look
money.
at that for sure.
We could
perhaps.
certainly bring that back maybe with, I mean, we have to approve the minimum wage increase in January anyway, so we can look at a half year's worth of data to see if there's an impact.
Yeah.
The other hard to fill position is the registered nurse. So this year we started off fully
Lost one
staffed.
today.
Fully staffed, and then 2 weeks before school started, we lost 3 RNs. Going back to the hospital for more compensation, looking for a different position,
In-home healthcare.
and yep, exactly. And then just today, we lost an RN.
Oh, no.
Yes, and so she's actually one of the ones that presented at the board meeting. She got a great job offer for home health, making substantially more. So we have been working with our director of health services and looking at what do other school districts pay. And so, for example, an RN starting at Crane, well, so our starting salary right now is $47,500. And so we're recommending that we move that up to $57,500, 2 ranges. So Crane currently right now, if you're an RN, you start at $58,818. So substantially higher than our $47,500. At Yuma Union, they're at $52,565. So again, higher than where we're currently at. So we want to be competitive in that. The level of responsibility for an RN position, not only are you the expert when it comes to emergency and health and wellness, but you also supervise at least 3 or 4 schools and those students and those health assistants. So there's a supervisory kind of aspect to that position as well. And they do play a pivotal role in the Medicaid processes.
Yep, they have to be involved in going through IEPs for some of our kids who require medical treatment. But their signature on those IEPs through the Medicaid process allows us to bill back expenses to the Medicaid program and generate revenue. It's been about $1 million a year, and so they're an integral part of being able to do that. And so having them fully staffed allows us to do that in a timely manner and be able to. There's so much work that goes into those pieces to be able to spread that out evenly and make it make sense.
And there's a lot of training that goes into hiring and onboarding an RN. So they have to learn the district procedures. It's a very different environment from the hospital or home health. And so their eyes are this wide when they realize how many procedures we have and all the different laws and regulations. So every time we lose an RN, our director has to go back and start from, day one. And here, let me take you through this process. And then we've had, even at the end of the school year, we had those 3 vacancies. We had people that applied, accepted the position, and then they saw the compensation, final compensation. They're like, no, there's no way. I can go to the hospital, make double that, right? So we try to sell our benefits as far as the time off and the holidays and the insurance and retirement. But still, there's a drastic change, even when you just look at school districts, not just comparing us to the hospital, but just school district, there's a drastic change in what our current starting salary is to what theirs are.
So Crane, do you know, do they have a shortage of nurses over there?
I don't
I'm
know.
not sure.
Yeah, I'm not
Yeah, I
sure.
don't
of
know.
their
So I'm
staffing.
wondering if we should be offering at least what they're offering, so we can get
Right.
the nurses that are available that want to come to us, you know?
Right.
What, remind me how many RNs,
5.
5 in the district?
So we have 1 director, 5
Right.
RNs, and then we
Okay.
have 2 lead health specialists.
So
and
how
then
many RNs do we currently have now?
Well, now we're down to 4.
And
You would ask me
Okay.
yesterday, I would have said 5.
So at this point, is that something we can consider as a board, and maybe we can't, changing this number to at least what it would be for Crane? I mean, is that practical, Jamie?
Well,
What are your thoughts on that?
we have a salary schedule. So when he talks about the range from range 2 to range 4, we have certain levels that where every position is located in a range. So to just adjust, say, this position by $1,000.
Yeah.
Crane's 58.
Right. And so
Then we'd be essentially creating a new range for that one position.
So we're classifying the RN to a number about 4
yes.
instead of a number 2.
From 2 to
Right.
4.
Of about
So
$12.
there's a
Right.
range of 20 years between 57.5, and then each year is a 1% increase on top of that base. So there's a range in that can compete with Crane. If we moved it, we can't just move it by $1,000 because our placement schedule is structured by every range is $5,000 increase. So that would be the next one. We'd have to move it beyond that by $5,000.
We'd be throwing it to 62, right?
Yeah. So I would prefer to at least start here,
Start
and
here,
see
okay.
and evaluate,
Okay.
since it's very close to Crane and still above the high school district. Because I know at the beginning of the school year, we lost 1 RN to the high school district.
Right.
So I think this would put us in a spot again to evaluate, see if
Okay.
it makes a dent, to see if we can attract talent. And here's the most important part, can we keep the talent after we've already
Right.
trained them?
There you go.
Instead of-
And then evaluate that for next year.
I think one of the complexities, not only is the level of supervision that elementary RNs have, with supervising the paras, is with more special needs, more and more students with special needs coming through. We're seeing more and more medically fragile kids.
Yeah.
And also with little kids, you have emerging health situations, right? There's kids who develop health conditions. So the importance of our nursing staff staying on top of that and really knowing their kids is, it's a level of complexity that once you get to high school, you don't see, actually you see a lot of mental health things start to emerge in high school.
Yeah.
But, kids got asthma. They've had asthma since they were in 3rd grade or whatever. So I think, and that and the fact that each school has an RN at high school, so you have your own school, your own location. Our RNs are moving around.
Multiple locations. Yeah.
Right.
So what
So-
happens when we don't, I'm sorry.
We're going to go above the high school
Right.
starting.
Okay, I was gonna ask what happens when we don't have enough RNs because of all the stuff that they do.
So this is
What happens at that point?
There's a strain,
Yeah.
but people start wearing multiple hats.
Mhm.
The nice thing is the governing board approved those new positions, so we have the 2 health leads,
Mhm.
and so they take on some of those responsibilities within their scope of practice as well.
Sure.
But the director will take on a little bit more until we can find someone to replace that.
I want to make
With
sure
our-
that those people don't decide to
Right.
move on.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think
we're
if this was approved, I think this would be very encouraging to those folks to stay in our district as well. So
How many RNs did we have 5 years ago, 6 years ago?
before the cuts, every school had an RN.
No, but after the cut.
We had a total of 4
4 total.
without a director. Mhm. Okay, so next recommendation is we're trying to make it more of an incentive for employees to stay in the positions that are listed. So you have paraprofessionals, plus monitors, health assistants, cafeteria assistants, and librarian assistants. And so currently right now, these are employees that work less than 8 hours, so they're not entitled to holiday pay and the full benefits. So we are recommending that if an employee in those categories works for 3 years at 6.5 hours or more, then on their 4th year, they would be transitioned to a calendar that has 18 holidays, right? So those are the 18 holidays that you would see, normal federal holidays.
18?
Yes, that's how many we have in our district. 7 days in winter break. We have.
Those aren't federal holidays. Don't try to sell me on 18 federal holidays.
No, I'm saying in addition to the federal holidays, we have.
Okay.
But we're very gracious. We have 18 holidays that they're currently not receiving, and it's difficult for employees that are not receiving holiday pay over those 3 winter break, right? 3 weeks in winter break or the weekend or spring break. So we've heard a lot of feedback from those employees, and we have a lot of turnover in those employees, especially the paraprofessionals. So last year was kind of like the first step. Let's make them 6.5, make sure they have health insurance benefits. This year we wanted to go back and say, how can we bring more support and make it more attractive for those individuals to stay? And so we think this is the next layer that we would like to add in.
And that continuity is so important to the educational aspect for the children too, is having parents that know what they're doing, that have been there, that have experience with kids and with those teachers. It makes the team gel a whole lot better. So we think it's better for us and the paraprofessionals, but it also benefits the kids a great deal.
Is the length now of the employees impacted basically 3 years? Is that why you're looking at a 4th year qualification?
So the district used to have a rule of 5 years. This is all before minimum wage, this is before my time, that if you worked 5 years at 30 hours or more, then on your 6th year, you would have holiday pay. So we took a version of that. We said 5 years is way too long. Let's look at a 3-year period. They're showing that they're invested in the district. And then on that 4th year, they would be transitioned. It also gives us time to budget. So if we said we're not going to make any criteria and everybody just starts on year 1, we have to budget for that larger employee group. So this is giving you some time to budget for those new employees that are going to be added onto that calendar. But we really think it's going to make an impact, especially for the paraprofessionals. And we've heard it from bus monitors as well, that it makes a difference where they don't have that compensation during those longer breaks.
The para
Carla probably
turnover.
remembers. Carla probably remembers.
I think so. Oh, she does. She did remind us on the compensation committee.
The para turnover was impacted significantly this year, and so we think this can really help bring that down even more. Or up, however you want to look at that.
So what are the thoughts on after the 2nd year of service, beginning the 3rd? Just seems like the 4th year is so far out, you know?
Right. Yeah.
But maybe you have good reason, I'm sure, behind this.
We just want to be conservative in the number of employees that we would bring on, but I mean, we would definitely be
We
open
could
to.
entertain it.
What are
We
your
could
thoughts on
look at what that
Shane?
cost would be.
Would this, if we adopt this, would this, do we have, how many employees in these categories do we have that would be eligible, that are already in their 4th year?
So it's
Would be
about
getting-
under 100 employees that would be eligible.
Out of how many?
Well, I have to go back and look at those numbers to see how many we have that are not getting a holiday pay right now. And it varies because we have a lot of turnover, so we'd have to go back and,
So you mean under 100 total employees?
yes.
Right.
Oh.
She's asking how many right now
Would
would
be
next
qualified.
year qualify? In other words, they've been here more
Oh.
than 4 and they would qualify next
I
year.
would have to go back to the spreadsheet to see
Yeah.
the exact number to share with you.
Of less than 100.
Yes, yes. And there are different categories like you can see here as well. But the board could definitely give us feedback if you felt like the 3-year waiting period was too long.
So you know that this increase would cost $200,000.
Yes.
So maybe we're curious about if we took a year back and went after 2 consecutive years working on the 3rd year, what would be the additional cost to the district?
We could tell those
Calculate
numbers very quickly.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
We could include that in the Friday report as well.
Okay.
Do you want to see the cost for 2 years and a 1 year or just a 2 years?
I like people to show that they're invested, but I also want them to, that I have kids, family members who work hourly, and if you don't work, you don't get paid. So I can
Right.
see why that'd be difficult, but I don't know, you could show us
We'll
all
show
of it, and
both.
we can make a
Yeah.
decision. I noticed that I feel we tend to get a lot of letters over the breaks from paras resigning.
Right.
Yeah, they go out and look for another job
Right. I got some free time.
or a part-time job or a seasonal job, right?
Right.
And then,
Right.
and then maybe they figure it's a better opportunity.
Yeah, we can definitely bring those scenarios back.
As long as it's sustainable.
Right. That was our concern too. That's why we wanted to start with the 3-year first, but we
Yeah.
can definitely plug those
We
numbers
can
in.
look at it and
Yeah.
see what it would do.
All right, our last recommendation.
All right, so what we wanted to do with paraprofessional support, we have a lot of schools who've been relying on ESSER funding to provide paras in the schools, to help with the learning gap and classroom sizes and those things that we've dealt with since ESSER. And so what we wanted to do was try to design some kind of a formula that would allot paras to schools based on how many students that they had. So we would fund these at the district level. Their main focus would be reading and math interventions. That's what we would want those individuals to be focused on, is to really help those kids who need some support in reading and math. So any school that's $299 or lower, so you see the 3 schools there, would get one para funded by the district. And then from $300 to $499, 2 paras, and on up. So you can see the different categories there. But we felt like an investment like this, along with the classroom sizes, could really help our kids be successful in those early grades, learning with reading and math and getting any support that they might need, to be able to make sure they're on par and on target, and progressing through the different levels and the stages that they need to be. And so we heard a lot of feedback from our schools about specifically one of them that was using them pretty well was Carver. They're all using them well, but I've spoken with Matt a few times, and he talked about how much progress his kids have gained in reading, because he's got 2 reading intervention paras that can help those kids sit down and read with them and help them go through that. And he was just concerned of what kind of an impact that would have on his school next year without ESSER funding and without those paras. What are those kids going to do? How am I going to continue supporting those kids? And so we wanted to go back and evaluate what that might look like. What kind of a system could we put in place that created a little bit of equity and opportunity for everyone? And so these were the cutoff points that we came to, and the cost of about $540,000 to be able to provide those paras to those schools. And these are just focused on elementary, again, really that reading and math intervention at the early ages.
A lot of the paras that were, that have been hired through ESSER, the schools have, the reading interventionists at the schools have really trained those paras and spent a lot of time making sure they know what they're doing in those intervention groups. And so to lose that expertise would really be a hard thing as well. So if we can keep those paras and keep that level of support going, I think it's a good way to help continue to bridge those learning gaps that may exist.
And some of those paras have been, I would say, inspired to now pursue teaching as a career. So that's a great pipeline to start someone if that's their pathway that they're choosing.
Paras are great. Since they're fantastic, haven't been a teacher. Paras, it's just great. It's a great resource, support system.
Yeah, a para that really knows what they're doing. And you have to make that investment, that training, right?
Right.
But there's the social emotional component as well, and I've shared with the guys that my granddaughter's in a class with a para. She doesn't have special needs. She doesn't have any deficiencies in any of, she's highly proficient in all her exams, but her favorite teacher is the para. She didn't know the para was the para. She thought,
Yeah, my other teacher, right?
yeah.
Yeah, teacher in our classroom.
Okay, so now showing all of our recommendations together. You can see the top portion here has all of our salary increases for the different employee groups. And then starting here with para support are the recommendations that we've gone over with you and the costs associated. And so you can see highlighted here in yellow is the total cost, but keep in mind it's not all coming out of maintenance and operations.
Right, so about 65% of our positions are paid for out of maintenance and operations, so the district's M&O budget. The other 35% of those positions are paid for out of child nutrition. They're split funded with the high school district through transportation. They're paid for through grants. And so we estimate about $4.5 million of that will come at our direct expense. And then the remainder of that, some of that with transportation shared with the high school district. And then all of the child nutrition costs are going to be paid for out of their own program. All the employees who are currently paid for out of a grant, the grant would continue to pay for those positions. So, the $6.4 million sticker is a larger number.
It's a grand total.
Yeah, but it's not all, coming out of our 17 million carry forward for next year. And so I just wanted to kind of point that out as what kind of how those puzzle pieces come together.
The next page is just a visual. If you just look at employee raises, you can see the percentage that we're spending on different employee groups. So the largest group here is the certified teachers at 37%. Second largest would be those employees making more than minimum wage, 35%. And then third would be those employees at minimum wage. And then you can see the other employee groups, admin, exempt, and then certified non-teachers represented in that graphic as well. Then the next slide shows you total expenditures, adding in all the other recommendations we talked about: para support, classroom size reduction, holiday pay, insurance increase, and you can see here the breakdown of those costs as well. And we really wanted to show, there's a link obviously to classrooms in every one of these sections, but we really wanted to show that direct classroom support. So your last graphic shows the certified teacher increase, the para support that we would be providing to all the elementary schools, and the class size reduction. If you just look at those three areas, 58% of that investment's going directly to help support the classroom. So we just wanted to show that visual. I'm glad we're almost done with the presentation in case the power goes out. The last one is just a timeline. So in February, we meet with all of our committees, compensation committee, our cabinet meeting, our board study session, and then obviously next week on Tuesday, you'll have the opportunity to approve this recommendation. And then in March, if that happens, and our team gets really busy in HR and we start working on our contracts for teachers, placement schedule revisions, we start getting insurance information for employees, and then in April, we issue all the remaining contracts and working appointments for all the other employees. And then we start open enrollment for insurance too. So that's the timeline. It moves very, very quickly. It's the busiest season for us and our teams together at this time. So we're excited, but that was our presentation.
Nicely done.
Thank you.
Any questions?
I have a question.
Yep.
Actually, it has to do with the certified salary scale. If I looked at the correct page online, I think it was passed by the board in 2001, and it said that teachers get up to 12 years
Yes,
at $250 per year,
correct.
and that's 2001. I wanted to know if we could see about an increase in that amount to at least match with Cranes, which is $500 per year.
Okay.
Yeah,
Although I think they give only 10 years experience, we give 12.
they do. They get 10.
But if I'm shopping for a teaching position, I'm always looking at that in addition to the pay.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to throw that out there and see if that's something that we wanted to entertain and look at. It's $250 a year for experience.
That's the placement, for their initial placement.
Right.
Where they start, yeah.
We explored that last year too, but because we had a very comprehensive recommendation last year, we took it off.
Okay.
We can definitely explore that as well.
Yeah, that's something I'd be interested in exploring for this year.
We'll compare it with all the other districts to see how
Okay.
close or far we are.
Okay.
And then when we do it in a year, but maybe chip away at it.
Even if it's an incremental increase that we could recommend to the governing board, that'd be something we can look at too.
Yeah.
That we know where we're going with it, we know where we want to
Right.
get to.
Right.
Yeah.
As far as being conservatively budgeting, we could say, we can, like you said, incrementally get there.
Right.
Yeah, I would, the only thing, I think that's a fantastic idea. I would suggest waiting a year only because I think where we are now is kind of at the max of where I'm comfortable going
Okay.
forward from a financial perspective.
Okay.
Now, that doesn't mean we couldn't say, I prioritize this over a different piece of what we brought forward.
Sure. Okay.
But I wouldn't want to really push
Okay.
that number up any higher. I think we're in a good spot
Okay.
to be sustainable. And then that would give us a really great thing to look at next year as well. So that's the only thing I would say, but of course, whatever you guys decide.
But to have
We'll
some
make it
points of
happen.
comparison from other districts, especially in the county, that would be good.
Yep.
We wouldn't want it to affect our existing teachers.
No.
Yeah.
Right.
And
We
we,
want to make sure that
Yeah.
that we're not going back into a situation where a new hire with the same experience is coming in at or
Yeah.
above some of the experience in our district. Yeah, you
and
wanna-
we evaluate that very thoroughly
look at that.
before we bring to you a placement schedule for next year.
Mhm.
So most of the time, we don't add in 4% to the base pay for teachers, new teachers coming in. We add in a little under to make sure we don't have that dynamic that exists. So we are cognizant of that.
Okay.
But we will definitely, I mean, we can do that this year too, but certainly make that something that we look at in next year's recommendation so that we can put a dollar amount on that, plus what it would do to the placement schedule. And we could come forward with that next year as part of our full package. I think that would be,
Okay,
I would be more comfortable with that.
okay.
I have a question. So in the coming days between now and next Tuesday, if we have thought about it or we look at it or whatever, look at our notes and we have a question or a concern that comes up, should we call you, email you? What do you want to do?
You can email
Whatever
us,
you
yeah.
want.
Okay,
Call, email, anything. Absolutely.
smoke signal.
Yeah.
At this point, the follow-up we're gonna get is on Friday, the Friday report pertaining to that, the 1 year and the 2 year
Yes.
versus the 4 year. That's what I'm gonna look for. Okay,
Okay.
great, thank you.
And
I
then,
want to touch on that just a
Okay.
little bit.
Sure.
Excuse me. I was running just a couple of numbers here. We're talking about a group of people making roughly 18,000 a year, right? They don't work year round. So this isn't a career choice, right?
correct,
This
for the
is,
most part.
for the most part, I mean, some people
We
can't
do
make
have-
a
A lot of
career
times
look
it's a second
making
income.
$18,000 a year, but, you know, you're talking about a group of people that are retired or working because their kids are in school and they get the summers off, and there's a lot of, the job fits their life
Mhm.
more than the money being a concern, right?
Right, it's a second income where the spouse
Yeah,
makes a lot more money.
and my only concern with reducing that investment time is trying to make McDonald's a career job, right? Minimum wage $25 in California, or $20 to work at McDonald's. It's not designed for people to live a life, a career at. It's a job that fits people, and that's why you have the turnover.
Right.
It's not the pay, right? There is a point where if you're gonna pay $50,000 a year for somebody to do this, then yeah, you're gonna get people who are gonna do it because they're only working 8, 9, 10 months out of the year. Your turnover, I think, is kids going to different schools, parents following kids, thinking that they want to live off of $18,000 a year. Because the 18 holidays, if they're paid the 6.5 hours, that's going to come out to pre-tax about $1,600 a year. That's what we're talking about bringing into their life, is $1,600. Some people, that's a huge impact.
It's
It
a,
really is.
College student.
But are these college students?
I don't know.
I would say that
What
we
is-
actually
what is
have,
the
we actually
demographic and
do
the-
have a lot of career paraprofessionals that retire from that. We also have a lot of bus monitors that retire after 20 years with our
Mhm.
district too. So librarians, we have several.
Paralibrarians.
That's one's on our compensation committee who has been with us over 25 years. So there are a lot of individuals that are invested in those positions. I think, yes, I think the new generation, the new workforce is not going to stay maybe as long in those positions. And so we're trying to kind of meet in the middle to make it more of an incentive to stay at least longer than a couple of months.
I'm not disagreeing with it.
Yeah.
I guess I'm pushing back on your desire to want to bring the investment down to 2 years versus 3. I don't think it's going to make a difference between that. The people that are going to leave after 1 or 2 years are going to be people that leave with or without that. The people that stay are the ones that, it doesn't matter if you even offered it, they're probably going to stay the duration. I don't think, even if you did it right off the bat, first hire, first day, first holiday, you get paid, I don't think your turnover is going to change. So I don't think if your goal is to stop the turnover, I don't think that's the answer. You're not going to get the results.
Well, we don't know unless we try. And I can tell you that, again, having been a teacher, it's a good return on the investment having pairs in there. Because oftentimes you're saying some students don't know that they're not teachers, you know? And so that's the way that I'm looking at it. I see what you're saying.
I do
but-
too. I think it also kind of goes to climate and culture. It's like we value you. This is only $1,600 or it's only a few days or a few hours, but we want to show you that our district cares about you. And maybe that's for a couple people enough to say, you know what, I do want to stay at Atondo. I do feel valued. I don't know.
I will say
Well,
that,
on that, I don't
Yeah.
disagree with it. I'm
Right.
not saying I disagree with it. I disagree with it for the reason we think it's going to happen, right? If we're going to do it because we want to invest in our people, okay. But if we want to do it because we think it's going to stop changeover, I don't think it's going to happen. And so we're doing it for the wrong outcome. And then we're going to be back here in a year going, well, that didn't work. Why not?
Well, we might be. You don't know unless we try.
I think there will be,
But we have to think about that, right? I mean, if the outcome is for stopping turnover, what's causing the turnover? If it's $1,600 over the year, you know, we had a pay raise, minimum wage went up. We've had increases over the last year. We've taken what parents or we've done pay raises over the years, we haven't seen that turnover stop, right? So they've, over the last 4 years, their pay increase has been more than $1,600. And we didn't see the turnover stop at that. So I don't think throwing another $1,600 at it is gonna stop that. But if we wanna say, as a board, we want to invest in our people and their well-being, I'm all for it. But I don't wanna say, to stop turnover, let's throw $1,600 at people, because we're gonna be back here again going, well, that didn't work. But we invested in our people. Well, why don't we just say that at the beginning? That's all. I'm not against it. I just want to do it for the right reason.
Right, I hear what you're saying. For me, it's both of those reasons. I want to invest in the people and I want to try to prevent the turnover.
I don't think we will in this position.
I mean, I don't know.
Well, and
I mean,
I
you might
think-
be right. I don't know until we try.
$18,000 a year, there's a
Right.
small group of people that can
So-
manage that.
I will say that monitoring health services, we lost about I would say about 4 people this year, their health assistants, to a different district that I won't name, because they offered holidays. And so they said they would have stayed here. They loved working for the director. They loved the climate, but not having compensation over the winter break and spring break was a hardship for them. So I think it will impact. It may not be a great impact, but I think it will impact some of the turnover issues that we are seeing.
What are the years of service that are rewarded for the other districts? Is it right away the first year, or is it after 3 or after 5 like we used to do?
I'll have to research to see how,
Okay.
I know in Somerton it was right when you start, you have that.
Because we could stick with the initial 3 that you guys, or the compensation committee recommended, then look at the data, see, okay, historically, this is the kind of turnover that we've had. We added for these people
Right.
that additional 100,000 or whatever it was, and what impact it had, and then we could say, that was huge, let's take it down to after 2, or it didn't make much of a difference at all. Was it a good investment? I don't know.
And then also look at the competition, like I think you
Right.
said, see what
Yeah.
the other districts doing.
Yeah, we can research that as
Use
well.
that as a benchmark.
So what I'm hearing is, get some information for the Friday report, and then on Tuesday, it would be 2 options to choose from. One would have, I mean, it's minor changes, right? But it'd be 2 options to choose from. One, sticking with the original recommendation of 3 years in, holiday on your 4th year. Another one, reducing that down from 2 years to 3. Because that's how it has to happen. We have to vote. It has to be a vote.
Right, yeah, that's what I'm thinking too.
So if we offer another option, then all the information can be presented in the Friday report, so all the board members can digest it and see what they think, and then when it's presented in the board meeting, then it'd be option A, option B, and Dennis Luciano could highlight the difference between the options, and then the board would vote.
Okay. That's the way that I'm saying.
Is that what
it
I'm
too.
hearing that we want, or do you guys want to discuss it a little more? Or?
I think that's fine.
Should be fine. I mean, I think that doing the investment as the goal, I think, is easier for me to accept than to think that you're gonna have a small turnover for any job that pays less than $20,000 a year is gonna have high turnover. That's just the way it's gonna be. I mean, that's, very, very few people can live off of that without a supplemental income. And so if we're trying to stop the turnover, there's a better solution, right? There's gotta be, I don't know what it is. But if we wanna invest in our folks, then $1,600 a year is a small price to pay, because then we will achieve that, because when you give somebody $1,600 a year, you've achieved improving the quality of their life, ever so much as it is. I can accept that, but I can't accept $1,600 is gonna stop turnover that people are making. I think it's like just under $18,000 a year. I just don't think that's gonna happen. I watch it happen in private industry, people making part-time. They are always gonna be part-time somewhere. They won't stay with you forever. Very few people will, just because they enjoy it. They could care less if you paid them. So I just want to do it for the right reason.
Sure, and I agree with that, so I'd like to do it from the position of investing in our people.
Yeah, and I think Mr. Dollars and Cents data guy right here, you made a good point when you laid out how much it costs versus looking at it at 18 holiday 18 holidays, that is appealing. When you lay out how much money does it really cost, then that's a dollars and cents approach that makes sense to me. But I think thinking about the pairs and how the difference that they make, I would feel if I were to get a 18 holidays, that would feel valued, and maybe, because it never mattered to me anyway, how,
You're part of
the
the rest of
dollar.
the group here.
yeah,
Everybody around you is getting holiday
Right.
pay, so am I.
Mhm.
I'm not segregated
Right.
out, you know.
I'm
Exactly.
not gonna sweat it too
Exactly.
bad over Christmas break.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think it's really
I
important.
don't think the money is the issue. I think it's the stigma of,
Where's the value?
I'm part of everybody else. I think we
Yeah.
all get holiday pay.
That's a very good point, and I agree with that, absolutely.
Trust me, I worked in government long enough. People don't care about the money, they care about the fact that they got paid for not being there.
Yeah, let's take care of our people and make
That's
them
at
feel
any
important.
pay
Yes.
scale.
Right.
I mean, it is at any pay scale. You're talking about people making $150,000 and they are excited about their holiday.
Oh, yeah.
It doesn't make a difference in their world.
Yeah.
So it's not gonna change turnover.
Right.
Sorry, I'll get off my phone. So I'd like to see the 2-year.
Yeah.
With the one, with 2-year on the 3rd year, I think, because when you're investing in people, I think 2 years is a decent amount of time that they've returned them. It may get somebody to finish their first year and go, wow, after next year, I'll be able to get home.
Maybe,
That's actually what I was
Like everybody
thinking,
else.
instead of thinking 2 more years.
yeah,
Right.
it might be appealing.
First year is always fun and exciting. It's like a new job.
So if it's financially feasible, then a
Right.
2-year option would be the best one to present on Tuesday and not 2 options, right?
I think so.
Okay.
I think so as
Okay.
well.
If it's financially
Because-
feasible, like you just said.
Yes,
Right.
yeah,
yeah.
it's
If it's
sustainable.
not, then just the one that is feasible,
Yeah.
financially feasible.
Okay.
I think,
Right.
Yeah, the difference next year is how many people
will impact.
will it impact
Right.
next year as
Mhm.
opposed to the 3-year. So,
Will we
No,
see
it's
some
a
of our
significant
committee on
amount.
Tuesday?
What's that?
Will we see some of our committee on Tuesday?
They might not be available, but they're gonna be available via video.
Okay.
So yes, you'll
Okay.
see them.
Okay.
You'll see the
Video.
summary.
Okay.
Great.
not live,
No.
Okay.
pre-recorded.
Does anyone else have any questions for the good of the order? There being none?
Wait, we have another item.
We do. We have
Yeah.
another item. I'm not
It's
looking at my
very quick though. I
agenda.
just want to give a quick update on some of the
Facilities,
facilities.
okay.
You are correct, sir.
Price. We put in for the emergency grant and we got back today,
Mhm.
right? James got back approval on that to move forward with the roof
Assessment.
assessment, which then results in the roof repair. And then the remediation underneath the roof, as soon as the roof gets fixed, they'll come in and remediate the rest of the area. So we're looking at weeks, probably a few weeks. So right now, Audrey's got everybody accommodated. They've cleaned out one classroom that's been used as a meeting and IEP room. They've got a portable that had been used for storage, and they've got another classroom in there, and then they've got a classroom in the cafeteria. So everything is moving and moving quickly to get that all repaired. The second part, which is the most exciting part, which is the 5-year odyssey we've been on to get a new school out there. We had a meeting, I put it in the Friday report, but we had a meeting last week and we've got another one scheduled
A week from Thursday.
every 2 weeks. So we had Dennis and myself and Audrey, and then we had Chris Thompson, the architect, who's been working with us since the beginning. And we had personnel from YPG as well as our project manager from DC.
James was there too, right?
And James Lagunas all on the phone. And so our project manager went through all the things we need to update, and we've updated our narrative. Chris Thompson's working on updating the costs and calendar schedule for the project. And our goal is to get that all turned in by Friday, back to the project manager. And then, I don't know why he didn't have something he could just print for us, but he read everything to us. If everything goes as scheduled, the way he has it scheduled, we could get funding for that project in May. Which means we could start over the summer with the, with the architectural and the AAA and getting all that ready. And And then the plan would be to build the new school where the field is. And then after the new school's built, the kids move in, demolish the old school. So,
Can we put a cafeteria
Hmm?
in? Cafeteria?
cafeteria.
Yep.
With a kitchen that'll serve the kids hot food.
Yeah.
Yep. And the line that was near the end of the meeting that we have never heard yet is, the money's there. He said, the money's there.
Yep.
It's sitting there. So in the past, he's never said that before. But in 2020, we got a password to the federal grants management to go ahead and start putting in our grant proposal when COVID hit. And now this is as close as we've been to that since. And he had, I don't know, half a dozen different rationales as to why it's taken so long this time around, but he was apologetic, and so cautious optimism, but I mean, it's unfortunate that the state's gonna have to spend some money to fix this roof and then tear it down in a year and a half.
Mhm.
But we can't have a year and a half of kids in makeshift classrooms.
Mhm.
So we're really optimistic there. On the other side, Dennis and I have met, we met again today with Arcadis, and they're really starting to flesh out. They've got a document they shared with us. All those SFB eligible projects that we've reported on before. And then on the other side is needs at each school that SFB or not SFB eligible. So outlining those needs, and then they're in the process. She's meeting with Chris Thompson hopefully tomorrow to start putting rough order magnitude cost figures to all those, so we can have an idea of what our larger need is. So we think we're just a couple weeks away from having a monetary estimate on our capital needs that are not eligible for current state funding, so that then we can start putting together a prioritized list of projects. But the two categories that that the projects are going to fall under are safety and modernization. Okay, so the safety, a lot of the safety is going to be in front office areas. That's something that SFB will not do, is pay to reconfigure your front offices. But we've got so many schools that were built prior to school safety being a top priority, right? So they don't meet, and I'm on the safety committee for the minimum adequacy guidelines. Anything that we put in that's going to be accepted is going to be for new construction, right? We were pretty much told there's no way the state is going to go back and retrofit all these safety and security guidelines to old schools like ours. It would break the bank. So one of the things we want to do is at a number of these schools, Raleigh, even Otondo. Otondo, the offices, put her back in the middle of the school. There's no secondary
There's a
security
lady that
measure to
sits at a
get
little
somebody
desk
once
in
they
the
come in
front.
the door.
You cross your
they're in.
fingers, nobody
So-
comes in.
A lot of our schools have a need to upgrade the safety in terms of point of entry. So fencing is not the ideal. If you can do it from an architectural standpoint, you can not only make it safe, but make it attractive and a logical point of arrival. Under the modernization, we're looking at STEM, a lot of science. Like Woodard does not have a science lab. Woodard has science classrooms with one demonstration table up there. And in two of the classrooms, I just learned this last week, two of the classrooms, the running water doesn't work. So Danny had installed 5-gallon water buckets with a foot pump for the teacher to do
Technology.
presentations. So we're going to try to upgrade those facilities. And that's one of the things we got back from our survey from parents, is that those kind of facilities are important to our parents. They want facilities where our kids can experience science, where our kids can do project-based learning and collaborative learning in a flexible space. So that's going to be one of the big areas. Another area is going to be in the arts. That's another area we got back. So we've got some really outdated fine arts facilities, not talking about auditoriums, I'm talking about band rooms, for example. If every band room was like Ron Watson, we'd be in pretty good shape, but they're not. So, and then another category, which I don't think is going to be as easy to sell to the public, but really our special needs classrooms, our classrooms and facilities for students with special needs are really, really not up to date. We've taken old 900 square foot boxes and tried to outfit them to where they're going to meet the needs, the specialized needs of, say, a classroom for students with autism or our behaviorally challenged students. So we need to be able to, under the modernization, we need to be able to gut some buildings and put in really serviceable, high quality facilities for special needs students.
Why would you think that'd be a hard sell?
Well, it's interesting. I was talking to, so a couple people I've talked to that are helping us on the committee, they're like, I don't know if you sell, I don't know how many people know about special needs and those needs. And then I talked to a couple of principals recently, and they're like, I'll bet everybody either, if they don't have somebody in their family, at least has a friend or extended family with a student with special needs. So I don't know if it'll be a hard sell or not, but it's a huge need. So we're going to
I don't disagree with you.
Yeah.
I'm just surprised. I thought maybe you had something that came back that showed that the public just didn't care about the special needs.
Oh, I don't think that's it at all.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't think that's it at all.
I was getting worried.
I just think trying to help them visualize. I think everybody can visualize a science lab.
Mhm.
Everybody can visualize STEM. I think everybody can visualize a music room or athletic fields. We need to upgrade our playground equipment throughout the district. We got some old.
Don't have enough
It's kind of
shade.
cool. Right?
Antique.
It's nostalgic.
And I think people know that the special needs, the textile toys,
Yeah, and the sensory rooms.
and things.
Yeah.
I mean, that's all become a new buzzword over the last
Yeah.
5 to 7
Yeah.
years. So I don't know if it'd be. I hope it's not.
Hopefully it's not.
I hope it's not. I don't think it's going to be honest.
And then as part of that process, in some of our in-town schools where we have excess space, we need to work toward reducing the square footage. So if we have a particularly old building, then let's say we have 3 particularly old buildings, rather than modernize all 3 of them, maybe demolish one of them, modernize 2, and then get a nice big courtyard type area in between, with some shade and so on. That will help.
Outdoor learning space.
Outdoor learning spaces, yeah, because that doesn't count against our square footage. So that way, if we can reduce square footage, then we position ourselves better in our annual capital plan to potentially qualify for a new school through the state sooner.
Does modernization have anything to do with solar?
It can.
Not as much
We
anymore.
got a lot of parking lots. How many square
don't
miles
have-
of parking lots do we have?
But we have, almost all of ours have solar.
Do they?
Quite a few
Yeah.
of them do. Yeah, we reached
Fourth
out
Ave
to
doesn't.
2 different companies who do solar, and they both said, we'll do it for you, but the payoff isn't there like it was 5 years ago when all the rebate programs were really a big deal.
Mhm.
He said the savings isn't there as much as it would have been. He said, but if that's the way you want to go, we can do that, but you won't get the same guarantees from us that you did 5 years ago.
But it's nice to park in the shade.
Sure.
It is.
Yeah.
It's a huge selling point.
As long as you don't get bird poop on your car.
The Gila Vista folks aren't happy because the pigeons have been nesting.
Yeah. You got to take proper pest control
I'm not sure that
actions.
the car wash owners didn't maybe
Train the pigeons.
feed them up there, poop on everybody's car during the school day.
They feed them and
Mr.
plant
Shumwalt,
them
you
there
have
every day.
Anything additional for your facilities assessment update?
That's it. It's just a high level, but we feel like we're going to be in a position here in the next few weeks to start giving you a lot more specific information, both in terms of tax rate and scenarios for dollar amounts, and in terms of overall need and prioritized projects.
Excellent. Now, I don't want another false alarm. Is there anything anyone else has for the good of the order? There being none, it's 6:56, and I will adjourn this meeting.